Hey, Revolutionaries, I'm excited to bring you this week's episode with Mitch Zlotnik, where we're talking sound management solutions, product innovation, entrepreneurship, and pumping businesses. About his pumping businesses, some businesses he got into early on as an entrepreneur. You're just going to have to listen to the episode to figure out what exactly that means. But, Mitch said, hey, just hit me with whatever you got. So, I took him at his word, and he might have been caught off guard a little bit. But I think, getting him to share his stories really shows how he's able to smell blood in the water, as he puts it, as an entrepreneur, and identify opportunities and really understand, the customer and the markets and the niches that are out there and go for it. But before we get to his episode, I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who gave me such great feedback from the kickoff episode this year from Las Vegas. Yep, my top 10 ways I'm reinventing myself this year for 2020 and this new decade. Yeah, I was a little surprised. I got some immediate feedback, like right when I released it, that people were listening and they're like, hey, this is cool. Wow, this was really fun. Or, it seemed like they were really getting something out of it and just hit them at the right time, I guess when people are a little bit, slowed down a little bit for the holidays, they have some extra time to dig into these things and, be somewhat reflective. And like I said in the episode, get into reinvention versus resolutions, right? Because a reinvention will be more of a permanent change than just resolving to try. You know what I mean? We're here to reinvent ourselves, okay? So let's get started. All right, let's get started right now with my conversation with Mitch Zlotnik. This episode of Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast is brought to you by MG Zlotnik, a built environment and architectural consulting firm with an in-house production team. Delivering support services in the retail, hospitality, and residential sectors for leading brands worldwide, MG Zlotnik is reinventing, something near and dear to my heart, of course, architectural support services. Suffice it to say that whatever built environment or architectural project you're working on, MG Zlotnik can step in and help accelerate your growth. So, if you're looking for a built environment and architectural services firm with an in-house production team to help you reinvent your next project, check out MG Zlotnik. Find them on the web at mgzlotnik.com. That's mgzlachter.com, mgzlotnik.com.
Welcome to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, the show that explores reinvention in the digital age as it relates to career, creativity, and technology. Stay tuned for interviews with professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives that have reimagined success and are making a pivot. If you'd like to listen to the entire back catalog, visit jimreinventionrevolution.com for instant access. And now, here's your host, Jim.
Don't tell me. Just take me there.
All right, we're good.
And it's real.
All right, I love it. Okay.
Then you get the real thing.
Okay, here we go. Hey, everybody. Hey, this is Jim. Welcome to episode 63 of Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. And I'm sitting here with Mitch Zlotnik, and we're talking sound management, sound solutions, and product innovation.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Mitch, welcome to the Reinvention Revolution.
I'm so glad to be here and finally got here.
Yes, well, I'm glad that you said that because you know what? I just have to share this with you before we really dig into things.
Sure.
And that when I first conceived the podcast, you were like high on my list of a guest that I thought would be perfect for it and that I really, I have to say this like out loud to your face, that I really actually admired.
Oh, you're the man.
You're the man. I
love this podcast. Did I say that?
I don't say these things very often, but no, in terms of thinking about, sort of the world of entrepreneurship, of, reinvention, creativity, etc., because you just always struck me as someone who's, I spent a lot of time in the corporate world, okay? Mm-hmm. And, of course, we've worked on projects, which we might discuss a little bit later, how we first met each other. But, in the corporate world, people are very, very focused on, earnings and growth and business and all this stuff and kind of hard things, which is reasonable for public companies. But you have this element that's creative. You're also a good business person, but you like customer service and customer experience. And it's just sort of this, kind of fully more organic kind of feel to what you're doing and what you like to do with your businesses.
In your opinion, I respect a great deal because you've known us for quite a while and you've worked different projects internally, which is kind of how we met. And you've had a chance to see it play out. And I think what you're seeing is how do your values as a leader manifest themselves inside your business? How do you get people to follow that? And that's how you know fit. And it's also why our team is so great right now, is because there's the values are aligning. Personal values align with business values.
Right, absolutely. Well, yeah, I can't wait to get into, kind of the new stuff that Audimute's been into and is doing. But before but before we get there, and that'll, hopefully people will dig what's going on. But I wanted to ask you this question up front here first, because I think it will at least help us demonstrate some of the things you do. I think tie into the product innovation stuff is, I was talking to our friend Aya, who from MG Schlochter, and she was reminding me,
designer extraordinaire.
Yeah, designer extraordinaire. Yeah, we'll talk about her in a second more, which is good. But she was saying, like, hey, did you know that Mitch was in the pumping business?
Oh my God!
And I'm like,
that's great.
The pumping business? Actually, it turns out you were in two different pumping businesses, right?
Yes, I was.
So I want to ask you about this first, because this is so bizarre and weird for me. And Mitch has no idea that I was going to ask this. So
it's great.
Can you tell me what that means? Tell everyone what that means.
The pumping business. Wow. So really, baby, it's not mine. Quote from Austin Powers.
Right.
I worked for a family business, which was a medical company. We had a chain of pharmacies, and part of that was a medical device company. And with that came a FDA-approved version of the really, baby, it's not mine, vacuum erection device.
Okay.
No kidding.
Wow.
And so, hey, a niche is a niche. Business is business. And people needed to find a place to go get this. This is well before, like, people would talk about ED, erectile dysfunction, and all this kind of thing. And so, a guy comes in with a script one day looking for this thing.
Now, this is years ago, probably 20 years ago.
20 years ago. 20 years ago. It was
right,
before, well before Viagra or any Cavaliers or any of the things came out. And so they used to think it was all in your head and all this, and then there was the whole ping pong thing that the urologist played with the psychologist. But in short, there is a niche here. Right. And so when I found out what the allowables were for that particular device from Medicare, and there was such a huge margin, it's like, we need to go after this market before Medicare sees this thing and realizes, gee, we should be reimbursing maybe less, because that's what they do when things get very popular and there's volume and stuff. It's like, now we need to really control this cost because something's running away. They're making too much money. It's weird how that works, third party pay. But
okay, so how did you stumble upon this niche, or what got you thinking about it?
Guy walked in with a prescription. I went, what the heck is this?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, first, because my dad's got a very perverted sense of humor, I was thinking, okay, my dad set this up. This is a joke, right?
Right.
And it's like, no, and that was the first pump, if you will.
Okay.
And we did. It was great because you had to market in a very unique way, because it was still very, it wasn't like you were seeing erectile dysfunction.
You couldn't really
TV.
talk about that stuff overtly back then.
No way. And so I went to an outdoorsman show. I think Mike Hargrove, former manager of the Cleveland Indians, was a big sponsor for that. Or he was the front man. Okay. But when I looked at the demographic, my audience was there. So I went out there, I put the information
show. Yep. That's pretty interesting insight right there.
Put the information out, and what I found is that nobody was coming taking information. No kidding. I was standing in the booth. So I walked away, went to the bathroom the first morning, and I'm like, maybe 3 hours, 4 hours later, and I came back, and I'm like, oh my God, there's 10 people in there. I'm like, okay, I can't be here. So I literally paid the lady in the next booth just to reload my information for the week, and I had to kind of just, step back and get away from everything.
Yeah, right.
And we had a record sales that month. But it was really like what was essentially community service, giving away helpful information, all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. They even gave me a discount on the booth, which was funny, because I was there to make money.
Right.
But it's a great service. It's a win-win. When you can make money, you can do a great service. When people didn't know there was a solution, that they could renew their intimacy, things like this. That's the first pump. Second pump was the it was a great niche, by the way, until other things came out like Cavaliers and the pills and everything, and then the market was
killed that, right?
Kind of sales.
I guess
fell
they're still out there,
flat, and it was just done.
Wait, sales were flat?
They were flat.
Okay, got
sales were down. Yes,
I see what you're saying.
A bad thing in the erection business.
Right.
But that was pump number one. Pump number two was breastfeeding.
Okay.
And someone came into the store and they. Into the office, actually, corporate office where our medical device company is, and they had a prescription for some parts for adapters and such for breastfeeding. Mm-hmm. Immediately said, "Wow, what's that?" And they're from Progressive Insurance around the corner. I said, "They have pumping rooms there." I said, "Really? It's interesting." So if you got to be able to smell, I think in business as an entrepreneur, you got to smell blood in the water, and not just smell blood, but you have to smell blood of the food that you like to eat. And this is all medical devices. This was in our wheelhouse. This is something we should have been doing. And so I went out, met with their health coordinator at that point, find out that they have pumping rooms in every one of their buildings, and I was able to put together like a program for them that their employees could buy pumps that had minimum advertised pricing type of thing at a corporate discount.
Okay.
So it was huge, and was able to set up a corporate lactation program. And when they had new pumping rooms, we actually helped them fit and design those rooms for their employees. So this was just like a little side business. That was pump number 2.
Right. Okay. And when was this? Because this was not a recent thing where like
this is,
the market has kind of been made a little bit
about
now.
25 years ago.
Yeah, it's really early on.
But when you think about it, as companies were trying to, really do great things for their employees, pregnant moms, getting moms to come back to work sooner, making it convenient and easy to do so.
Right.
This is all part of that. So pumping business and pumps, which was kind of funny. You thought you'd catch me off guard here, but it really speaks to just about like, how do you entrepreneur? How do you smell blood in the water when you're in a medical device company and you can access all these devices because that's what you do. You source and you provide and you bill, for Medicare and insurance. You look for opportunities. And so if you don't have that radar on, then what kind of entrepreneur are you? So you have to be looking for those niches where you can play. And as soon as by the time competition even gets around to doing this, sometimes the allowables have dropped so much it's not even worth being in that item anymore.
Right.
So you have to get into this kind of a formula for working fast, getting there first, get your what they call the Schumpeterian profits, if you will, and then you get out.
I gotcha. Well, okay. See, I didn't even have to lead you, so you just get you talking.
Gave you this segue. It'd be more like how do you shut me up than how do you get me talking.
I guess, and because I knew that like these are a little bit. Those businesses, when I heard about them, like, okay, it's a little bit, kind of funny, niche, weird business to be in. But I knew that just the nature of that, you had to be more creative to even approach it and understand it and identify it as something that could be profitable in the first place, right? Because most people would be like, I don't know, I don't even see that opportunity there.
Well, I see you have to kind of study the market. You have to know right away, get a quick feel. How many doctors are writing for this thing? What companies are making these devices? What is this? How many players are there in this industry? And then you look and see, where is this going? And there's this big social thing that people aren't going to talk about these things. You know what I mean? Or something niche is breastfeeding, where you're catching, nursing mothers in this. It's a window where they're nursing their young. It's a great. You just have to recognize that there could be something there. You have to research it. You find out what your costs are. You find out what the market's bearing for the product. You're in business.
So cool. Well, awesome. So I think that this was, I couldn't have imagined actually a better segue or a better beginning to.
But I wanted to take it to the core of what we're talking about. If we're talking about entrepreneurship, what did that represent? And even though that was pumps. The funny thing is at that time I had a industrial drug division. Why? We had a call from a guy who happened to be the trainer for the Indians, who had one of our stores by his house, and he wanted to be able to have a charge account for the tribe, for the Cleveland Indians. And so we made that happen, and in doing so, found out that they also had needs for spring training and all year long had this program. So we ended up working with their trainers quite closely over the years to provide a industrial drug program. They needed to have proper dispensing workflows and things like this so that the doctors were supplying medication, et cetera, et cetera. They need documentation and keep it kosher with the State of Ohio Board of Pharmacy, right? So we had recognizing that niche when people come in was really crucial. And then being able to smell blood. Again, we're a pharmacy. This is right in our wheelhouse. We can do this. So what we did was, it was weird because I'd be on the phone with literally the trainer of the Cleveland Indians talking about, a visiting team, they need an injectable at the stadium or something like this. And then I've got the next call is a guy who hasn't had an erection for 10 years. And then you've got the next call, which could be, at that time was Medic Batteries, which is our other division here at Audimute. And we're talking about batteries. So you got batteries, breastfeeding, impotence, the trainer. If you walk by my office, you think I was, crazy.
Right. Well, pretty varied and diverse, and that's really why I wanted to get you start talking about it, okay? Because I think that's going to sort of, fold in and give people an idea of how you approach product innovation and the new things you're doing at Audimute, for example.
And this is crucial because if you look at the diversity of what we were doing back then, where trying to start fires and get things going when the reimbursements for prescriptions were so low and we were kind of a victim of third-party reimbursement, we had to find opportunity. So any business was that we could kind of find in our wheelhouse was good business, even things that weren't so aligned with what we were doing. But it was crucial to learn to get these things going. But what I realized probably in year one of Audimute was the value of the focus. And finding out, how do we, it's very difficult to play in such a broad arena.
Right.
And this is after Audimute came out. Medic had been sold to Walgreens, and we pulled out all the niches that I was able to take with me. At that time, so we had, still taking care of the Indians. We had the corporate breastfeeding program for Progressive and a few other companies. And then, you needed to find a way to make a living, have things, be organized, but you needed to, make something where someone can come work for you and not have to know 5 different industries.
Right. So let's just stop there real quick and just explain to people. So this was a family business. It was a medic drugstore. Like if people remember back, I don't know, it's probably about
30 years.
Probably about 20 years ago when things started changing.
But then they were in business for 30 years.
Right, in business for 30 years. But, used to have all these individual local drugstore chains and pharmacies and all that kind of stuff. And it started changing when Walgreens and CVS came in and started buying everybody up and pushing everybody out, I guess.
There was a lot of consolidation.
Right?
And because, mostly I think it was driven by insurance in terms of where you can go to get your prescriptions filled.
Okay, there you go.
So,
right.
And then the convenience and competing, how do you compete against Walgreens? They're
Right.
big category killers in the retail, on the front end, they call, for HPC and everything. So the health and beauty aids and such.
Right. So you were forced to move out of that or sell it, et cetera, or made it.
Yeah.
It's just good business sense to sell right at that point, right?
And so
now you're trying to figure out, okay, what's next? Maybe I'll take a couple of these things I can still manage myself, which I think the batteries came out of that.
Batteries was first, right? And we had it was outside of my desk.
Okay.
My dad said, "Hey, call a friend of mine. He's selling film and batteries to prisons and making a good living doing this." I'm like, "Really?" So I called him. He says, "Yeah, they buy batteries, they buy film." Okay, great. That was a really important call.
Okay.
All that said was they buy batteries and they buy film. Film was going away because of the C41 process was replaced by digital imaging, and so that whole thing was done for the most part, except for the purists,
And that was something that drugstores really did. Like they processed your film.
It was another reason you came into the store.
That's
it was
right.
A big reason.
Yeah.
First was pharmacy. Second was pretty much like to get your film developed.
Really? Okay.
It was huge.
I remember those days. I don't know if anybody, most people out there are probably forgetting those days by now, or they're young enough.
We're revealing our ages here. Yes.
Haven't even experienced them yet, right?
Yeah. So, some people you look at a telephone. I have to explain to my kids we're looking at, the dial telephone when they're dialing the number, what I mean? Or I need to tape this. Where the word tape come from, taping is recording. They don't get this,
recording tape,
Yeah. So way back when. But it's cool to live through that revolution, through that
absolutely.
transition.
Yeah.
But it's where were we going with this?
So the batteries, you were looking at the battery business that you were trying to, figure out
so
what's
I was
next
able to,
after
look at batteries. We started that on the side of my desk. And then Audimute was kind of in development at the same time. I was looking to sell on eBay. I was an early adopter of eBay. In fact, I was teaching eBay at the time. And this was
You were teaching eBay?
I was teaching eBay. I was teaching eBay. I was a certified instructor.
Really?
eBay
you got
University.
certified by eBay?
eBay University, yeah.
Really?
It's kind of cool.
Oh, I didn't know that. What year was this?
Oh, God. 99, right when they started.
Wow, that's pretty early. Okay.
And then I started teaching maybe in year 3 or 4.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
How did I not know this about you? This is good.
I like to keep things fresh for you, Jim.
I like this. This is good.
But it was so cool that I recognized a niche that you could go take these community classes,
right?
And I wanted to offer something that was hot topic and really big, and people would everyone's interested in making money, and how do you supplement an income or make this a thing, and people were just hearing about how people can make a living on eBay and all this.
I see. Oh, so you actually taught this in a physical classroom, not online,
right?
Just to remind people, people think about that today. It's like, oh, I offered a course or whatever online or something, probably at Udemy.
This was early before you
stuff
could do online. It was like online was new,
right?
Right. In fact, a lot of it was challenging. Here's how you turn on the computer. Now we got to get to eBay. I mean, it was
right.
Some of it was kind of tricky for some of the students,
early,
but whatever level they were at, I was just really encouraging folks to move down this path where they would accept the technology and they could find a way to make the computer turn into a cash register for themselves. And that's what I did. And so it was a great place to test product. It had and I still even use eBay as a training ground for my interns that I work with. I do an entrepreneurial internship.
Okay.
Very selective on students. But you bring somebody in, and everything's created. You have rules, you have a payment system, you have a very safe environment in which they can play, learn about customer service, all the important things that I think that have built what I call the Mitchology stuff that built this place, that you can apply in a safe environment for kids to learn. And test entrepreneurialism. And you can do that with such immediate feedback in terms of visitors and how to be found. Are you using the right keywords? What does your ad look like? And I mean, customer service, sales, packaging, operations, setting up workflows. And then in a very short, that's how I started this company. But in a very short period of time, somebody could understand business. And
Oh,
now
absolutely.
all the classes start coming together. Oh, that's what they're talking about. Yes, and now you have inventory. Yes. Oh, yeah, where's your cash? Oh, it's an inventory. Yes,
Right.
aha.
Oh, I see.
You know,
exactly.
Oh, bank fees. Yes, that's merchant services. Welcome to that world.
Right.
You know?
So interesting. So this was your first foray into e-commerce. And back then,
It was.
I don't even know if people were throwing that term around so readily. It
Oh,
was
it
like
was not
just
non-existent.
are you doing business online? I don't even think e-commerce, the term was
It
even
was
coined, maybe.
the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
We said that in full.
I know.
Right. Then the
crazy.
internet, then the web, then
Right.
came all these
Right.
things. But it was very, very early adopter. Netscape was just starting at the time. I had an email in 1991. I was coding
91, yeah,
HTML
that's
because
early,
there's
yeah.
nobody else that could do this in Battleship Gray, and my first website was about impotence, of course.
Okay.
And so, because why?
Is that website still out there?
If it is, it's long. It's way down at the bottom. But it was great. Dr. Ruth named us one of her top 10 sites, which is kind of cool at the
Really?
time. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Early on, that endorsement today would be a lot different, but
Right.
but back then, that was a really big deal, and we had a ton of information online. We were coming up everywhere, and then the powers that be, and this is the danger of technology, like when you know enough to be dangerous. All they knew was they wanted a site that looked different.
Right.
So what did they do? They went in and they framed out my site.
Okay.
They took all my tags down, all my labels. They just
Who's
redid. They being the management at Medic Drug.
Oh, I see.
I would
Okay.
say my father's partner. Okay.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
yeah, who and the advertising person.
I see.
Who was not of a technological generation.
I gotcha.
Who said, "Hey, I'll just change all this. We'll frame it out." Remember when framing? We used to
Yes.
frame. Oh,
Yes.
what a bad idea that was. And not just that, but now with all these different pages that were actually independent. Sites. So they tore apart my whole architecture,
I see.
all that work, all that for years. I
right.
built that up,
Right.
gone in a heartbeat, and
Wow.
nothing was found,
Yeah.
and all that.
Lost all the SEO.
All the
It's hard to
SEO, lost
navigate
everything.
probably,
I worked
and-
years to build it, seconds to lose it. Thanks to people who didn't know what the hell they're doing. It took me a month to realize that here we are spending money on pay-per-click and doing all this, sending them to people with links that don't work.
Right. Yeah.
Because who would be so silly to disconnect it, to pull the plug on something like that, thinking they're doing, oh, it looks nice over here.
Right.
Way to go, Ace. And you know what we did?
Right.
We hired a kid for $40 an hour to do this work. This is why I save important work for people that are totally qualified. But it's like,
Right.
it's nice to give experience once in a while, but when you need something done, you don't find, let's get an intern to do this.
Right,
Oh, no.
right.
Get a pro to do this.
It's worth it. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
The time, the stress that it saves you,
Right.
the money it saves you, and
But look at this great experience we gave this kid for $40 an hour to be able to rebuild a website, who was a nephew of someone, this kind of deal. Cost us a fortune.
Pretty street. Now, just so I understand, when people out there listening, like you're early on in technology here, and was that a legacy? I think it is of running the Medic business, because I think you were telling me you were running the inventory and kind of dealing with accounting and
Medic?
spreadsheets and stuff at Medic. Is
No,
that how you got
no.
into technology, or?
No, I was actually nowhere near that. I
thought you
worked,
were.
came up to the stores,
Okay.
learned to operate the stores because that's where everything happens. So we really were
Okay.
big on it, bringing folks in, especially anyone with potential management capabilities. Little did I know at that time I had no management capabilities. That's not my forte. Leadership is, not management. There's a difference.
Right.
And so what happens is in all these niches that I had, they're really, some of them were, they're kind of outside the day-to-day in terms of store support. They were niche-y, they made money, but it wasn't really in the core of what Medic did. So a lot of these things were operating on the corner of my desk. I was running all of them. It was all me. The only way to really learn how to make things happen was to learn automation.
Okay.
And when I started the automation,
Because you're more of a one-man show, and you're like,
yeah,
I gotta figure this out.
I needed to, how do I get my information from eBay, these sales? I don't want to retype everything into the UPS computer and all this kind of stuff. So I learned to kind of leverage technology for operational efficiency back then, because I didn't have a choice. I would spend a little time figuring out how to do ODBC, and that saved me a heck of a long time. And then I did what was called ETL, extract, translate, and load, which is basically how to get one system to push information into another one with the ability to change things on the way. So I could normalize, keep things straight and all this. And I learned to do the geek thing because that was easier than finding someone to work for me. And management at that time, my father's partner, wouldn't let me have someone, because it was just niche-y. It was not understood, The funny thing is all the things that
I
they
could
did.
understand that back then, too.
Yeah.
They were like, it's not a big moneymaker. This is
worse,
going
it was my
nowhere.
personality. Oh, Mitch is another weird thing, left field.
Right.
Yeah, this internet thing, it's temporary, all this
Yeah,
kind of
right.
stuff. And no, you don't get any credit. Meanwhile, if I were the management that be at that time, even my dad, I would have found a way to leverage a talent, a vision, a passion for these kinds of things for the betterment of the company, instead of pushing me off to a side and not really help, letting me get, open up some of these avenues.
Right.
But I didn't even know what that was at the time. I was a young entrepreneur. I didn't know anything. I had just a lot of energy. And I didn't know what I know now.
Right, of course, yeah, of
But
course.
But you better believe it. When I have a person like
Right,
that,
if they understood what they were seeing, though, in you, or the energy you were putting into it,
and that's why it's so
said,
important.
Like, wow, hey, there's something here. Let this guy run as
and
fast as he
you got to
can,
look in the eyes of your people and see the same thing. And if you don't, then you're hiring people that you can tell what to do instead of hiring people that tell you what to do.
Right.
And I would, if I were my father's partner, I would be like, look, tell us what to do. Tell us what to do. What kind of resources you need, and where are we going? Mm-hmm. And they have to be able to do that. And this is where the values come from.
Right.
And walk away and let things happen. And guess what?
That's right.
And allow mistakes to happen.
Yeah, set the template and let your people
Get the hell out of their way.
Yeah,
And get out of your own way. I say this a lot. Get out of your own way so that you can let someone who's more talented in an area than you are do well. And when I recognized, say, Kevin, our number 2, his talent for operations, and he's great in areas that I suck at, and I don't have the patience for. And this kind of thing, his brain works differently than mine. I recognize that I need to have, when you have a baseball team, you need obviously different players, different talents.
Sure.
Same thing in a business. And so when you find those talents, you give them the support, give them the space, the resources, and let them do their thing. Get the hell out of their way and let them meet you where the strategic direction is somewhere, down the road. That's,
right.
I'll meet you there. And what that did, it brought me freedom. It brought me peace of mind. In exchange for just extending a little bit of trust.
Right,
and
exactly.
patience, and just like you would with a family.
Well, it keeps you more excited, keeps you happier. When you're happy, everybody else is going to be happy, right? That's just
no one wants an angry boss
works.
walking around.
That's right.
But it's like, but it's like, and the people are happier. Mitch lets me do my thing. Exactly. And it's like, look, if you are really what we're hoping you are, in whatever role you're in,
right, you're
going to know when you make mistakes. You don't need someone coming and really shoving it in your face, pointing them out to you. And you did this, and hey, everybody knows.
And you're going to feel bad about it, and you're going to be hyper motivated to fix it because.
And if you have the feedback, you also know if you're doing a good job.
Right, for sure.
So yes, you will be hyper self motivated, intrinsically motivated to fix those things, so you don't look bad.
Right.
And so that you can take your area, grow it, develop it, and do your thing. So that's a good leadership tip in terms of, how to get out of your own way, how to trust people, let those things happen, and you have to be willing to go take with what comes with that, which is allowing people to make mistakes. And that's probably the hardest thing, because I guarantee you next year I will spend between $50,000 and $100,000 on error of people I'm trying to train and grow and develop.
Right.
50 to 100.
Yeah, that's the cost of getting through that development with them. Right.
That's a hard thing to
hard thing to sit back and watch.
Because I got a plan for mistakes. What?
Right.
Yeah, because if you're not pushing, then you're not. If you don't budget for that and allow for that and drive for that and challenge people for that, and use up the budget, in other words, in mistakes,
right,
then you're not pushing your business forward. You're coasting.
Right.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
If you want to coast.
Yeah, that's right. It's up to you.
But I think we're here talking about entrepreneurship and growing and growing people and growing business. And I think that's why people are listening to the podcast. Where do I find those nuggets? Well, that's a big one. Get out of your own way. Trust people to do what they need to do. Set up good standards of operation within the operation so that people know they have a sense for process and structure, right? Documentation, so that when that person goes on vacation, everybody knows how to drive their car. Steering wheel is here. Glove compartment is here, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Ignition, blah, blah, blah. And then you'll be able to have a life as an owner.
Well, right. Well, okay, so what you just said there I think is pretty important, which I don't think a lot of people appreciate. I guess that's one of the other things, when we first started out, one of the things I like about you is that you're creative, you're all over the map. You can, manage like 6 different, ideas and concepts in your head, but you're not a typical creative in that you really understand the power of structure and process.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I see.
Like you understand how that can really be freeing if you have a great process, right?
You got to have the process in place because most people don't. In fact, I recognized early on that that I had a problem My brain lives in the future.
Right.
Okay. Now you need those guys on a team.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Accountants live in the past. Your
Right.
operation people live in the present. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I recognize that as we started bringing people in, that there's going to be a need for structure so they have sanity. And I can thank Natasha Davidson for that, who was our marketing director and vice president for quite a while early on in our years, which really converted us from getting people just to call us
Right.
on the internet to actually e-commerce, and then really niching ourselves well in several divisions that we had at the time. But it was the power of structuring and organizing, which is complete opposite of me. If I don't enforce those things and push people to do that, then everyone will be like me, and that's a very bad place to live. Because then nobody's in the present.
There's only that one type of personality. You're not. Ooh. You'll be creative, but you're not going to go anywhere business-wise.
And you can't bring anybody in because everything's tribal. Right. Structures, organization is key to success. It's how you professionalize as essentially a small company, which could be just a handful of people,
right, to
starting to grow and structure and have layers and things as they're necessary. But the structures account for all the things that have to happen on a day-to-day basis.
Right, absolutely.
We actually developed a thing, an operational structure. We call it Clutch. And what this is basically an acronym for all of our areas of expertise relative to how we design and manufacture acoustics. So, especially the decorative stuff. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting is if we find, people always say, first thing you should do as a leader, go write down your do not do list. You know what I mean? Well, anything
they say that?
They say that, and people don't do that because they're like me early on, right? Any income is good income. Well, not necessarily. So,
that's true. Yeah.
How do I evaluate a good idea? One that fits into Clutch, one that meets our operational efficiencies, so we can leverage mass customization. That means I can take, something that fits within our existing processes. I can change the last, 90% of 95% of your product can be the same process. Change the last 5%, and now the thing is uniquely yours.
Right.
It's completely designed for your space, but all the processes are the same except that last little piece. So think about the power that you can leverage when you have that kind of efficiency. And that's what we've done internally, and that happened because of the structures that I push for, and then finding the right people to implement them. That enables that to happen every day, and that really gave us our big wind for growth.
Right. Well, okay, so this is perfect. This is what I wanted to talk about in regards to Audimute. And let's talk about Audimute a little more specifically, so people that aren't familiar with Audimute don't know exactly who they are, what they do.
Yeah, they think they started this conversation with they're like, hey, listen to this guy. Hey, he's talking about impotence. This is great.
Exactly.
And now it's like, okay, he's in the soundproofing business and he solves sound problems.
Right.
I see.
So let's talk about that. But it's got these underpinnings of this real creative way that you've been able to innovate in the space. But tell people what space you're in. So what is it? What's Audimute?
Audimute solves sound problems in commercial and residential spaces in very unique ways. We use a proven methodology that we've developed over the years that enables us to help our customers use their spaces for what they originally intended to. And a lot of times those solutions that we generate as part of that process is to fit within a space or integrate. And that means you may have to be branding. You may have to be art. You may have to be decor. You may have to be design on the walls, because we have to affect these surfaces in order to be able to absorb sound or to solve some of the energy problems that some of the spaces have, or deal with isolation issues. But we're talking about understanding the physics of sound. Being a drummer, that really helped because I was always noisy. That's how I got here.
Right.
But then, so that's what Audimute does. And it really is kind of like understand the sound problems, be able to figure out the integration, the form, fit, and function of a solution, develop the solution, which includes that strategy. And the whole purpose of this is not to sell you a bunch of panels, but to produce an intended outcome. One that you probably wanted when you started, went into the space that you're in, whether it's a restaurant, an office, could be a large hall, churches, home studio, podcast studio.
Yeah, podcasting.
All those things.
So cool. So as you pivoted out of Medic and into Audimute, how did you start Audimute in particular? And when, I guess I want to understand the history of the company a little bit, because I got introduced to you, I don't know, 10 or 11 years ago now, probably something like that. And it was before that you implemented this new piece of process equipment, which we can talk about. I don't know if you want to say what that is or not.
It's our secret sauce.
Secret sauce, your secret sauce. That's enabled a lot of this new innovation that you have. But what did you get started with? What was the first product?
So the first product was a soft acoustics sheet. and it was basically a way that, in a very affordable way, that a drummer like me at the time could keep his drums and his girlfriend, or then to be wife, and now children, in a very affordable way, where it was a solution that could be hung and taken down as needed. Works for vocal booths too.
Okay.
Hence podcasts. Yeah. See, so all these, this is a great solution for folks that are doing any kind of recording in a space or need to temper acoustics in a space. And I think it's more for a temporary thing, like someone in an apartment, or because I was moving around at the time.
I see.
So it was kind of a soft acoustics thing that was affordable. It was green. It was safe. It was made from recycled materials, and was something that was readily available and would ship immediately. And a band could practice in a garage and not have the cops show up.
Right.
Or you could practice in a space, a very small space, not only save your hearing, you could actually hear very specifically what sound your instrument was making. You could hear problems with your embouchure as a sax player, like you. Or in my case, you could hear when you weren't hitting the drum in the middle or off to the left or the right, which is...
Right, it would clear up this cacophony of sound that's in the space, right?
Exactly.
As well as, dampening the sound for others so you're not, interfering, right?
And when you play in a band, you have the whole shouting contest. And I know you as a sax player, when you're killing yourself trying to play over people, it's like, wow, but if everybody could hear each other with clarity, just like with monitors, if you could be in a space with clarity, you won't have that shouting contest, and you could actually play your horn. You could actually put some dynamics in there instead of just trying to blow over everybody.
Yeah, well, you're describing when you can't understand someone because there's so much sound bouncing around in a space. People always try to turn up to hear themselves. Like, they can't hear themselves, right?
And all you do is make the problem worse.
It makes it worse, exactly.
And what's the next guy do?
And you know what? A lot of bands don't even understand this, and a lot of just people that are working with sound don't even understand that. They think it's something about their PA system or something like that. I'm like, no.
More speakers, more power.
Yeah, we need more power, more speakers.
More cowbell.
It's like, no. If you have the space treated where there's clarity to the speech or to the articulation of the instruments, whatever, everyone can turn down. It just sounds so much better.
And you can bring the dynamics, and you can breathe again, and you can move people with your music instead of just putting it out there, you know. And I think that's, it actually takes some practice to be in that space again, because people have spent so many years fighting each other musically in a space that's not treated.
And not listening to each other because they're just listening for themselves. So
you can't even hear yourself.
You
so you're just,
it's like, it's hard to be connected to your other music, other guys in the band or whatever,
Totally. And how do you respect even the silences? There are no silences because there's constant energy. And if there was silence, your ears would be ringing. It's I think we do this in a lot of different spaces, not just the musical application, but that's probably my favorite because that's where we started.
Right.
But using sheets or things like that can be temporarily put up, they could be, as you relocate, they go with you. That was the first, and that was what still one of my favorite products. My son right now has stolen my set, and he uses it for a vocal booth to do voiceovers. He's doing some voiceover stuff and making crazy videos like stapling bread to trees.
Right?
He's doing weird things like this. Zemful with an X.
So you start with that initial product. You start getting into panels and kind of like widening out into a larger, I guess, more traditional sound treatment space, I guess you would say, right? To offer those
we started getting pulled
into
the commercial products, and the product at the time was not fire rated appropriately for commercial spaces.
Gotcha.
It was rated for anything that could be used under 90 days in a temporary situation in commercial spaces. But once it's there past 90 days and it's on the walls, the acoustical treatment has to be rated for the space it's in.
Right.
So if you rate for Class A, that means you fit in most spaces. You can be in the egress of a fire exit. You can be in large open spaces because you meet Class A. So you can basically be where the occupancy is at its maximum, and you don't have to worry about, people getting hurt. It's not going to burn within the reasonable amount of time that people can leave the building, et cetera. So we started developing solutions for these in commercial spaces, and initially they were just panels, kind of like the fiberglass market. And then we started realizing niches. How do we play differently? One, I was never using fiberglass because I wanted something friendly and healthful. I had a friend in the insulation business. We found we could press different materials, started exploring. A year later, EcoCtex is born. And now we have a cellulose-based technology that's used that can be coated a lot quicker than it can be covered with fabric, even though you can cover them with fabric and do upholstery and things like this. It's one of our areas of expertise. And then there's all kinds of different things that we can do with it, layering and make it look like other things, like wood. It's a new wood tone panels we have now.
Right.
So many exciting things that have come out of what we're continue to learn about the product. And it's got its challenges, believe me, because it's fibrous. So hanging solutions were tricky. But now, like for example, you can take our product. It's the fastest product to install in the business. with a brad nailer. You can't hang a panel. You can't hang a wall faster than EcoC-Tex with a brad nailer.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot. You don't have to put a clip on the wall and a clip on the panel and then do this thing. So Eco is so easy to hang.
Along
huge.
with the sort of the visual aspect and the customization aspects that it allows, right? So this is the interesting thing to me, that you got into the sound space, and I've known of kind of the sound treatment space for a while because, of course, I play music and been in studios and seen different environments. And I think the traditional look and feel of most sound management solutions is pretty boring and drab. It's like burlap panels and
it's kind of like standardish,
gray foam.
You can tell it's acoustical
foam.
treatment.
Yeah, it's right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Those are very standard treatments, and they're effective.
It works. It's effective. Like it actually, I'm sure there's a million records have been cut in the, the not very, interesting looking studios, but they're $1 million, platinum selling record studios. But yeah, I think the neat thing for me was this way to innovate with making it green and eco friendly, right? Mm-hmm. But also bump up the look and feel, and especially now with this kind of newer generation of the content marketing era that's out there now.
And you know what happened is the trends in design with open office concept really lends itself. So now we need something, and now that they need the acoustical to be corrected, mm-hmm. You have to fit within the design of the office.
Right. Okay.
Sometimes that integration, that's why integration, problem, integration, solution, outcome, that's our process. But if you have an integration that's going to fit, sometimes your job is to hide because you're coming in 95% of the time after the fact.
Right.
Someone's already got a problem. Mm-hmm. So now we have to fit within their decor and design. So we realized early that we need that flexibility, to either hide in the space or to become a decorative feature in the space. Either as decor, things that we can hang on the wall to be art,
right.
Or branding or messaging of some kind, doing these kinds of creative things. And we do very creative things.
Yeah.
It has a lot of fun. That is the fun, right?
Exactly.
And then, or it just disappear. How do you not notice that something's been treated? And it's funny because here in town, I've worked at a couple installations. We go to some places and it's like, I'm so proud of this. So people are like, wow, but where's your product? I'm like, that's why I'm so proud of it.
Right.
The sound design was right there and you don't see anything. And then other places, people walk in and go, wow, look what you did here. Mm-hmm. But other places, you can't even see it.
Right.
But very different from the convoluted foam days. We've rethought this industry. We've led this industry in that capacity to make folks realize that sound can be equally as impressive visually.
Right, absolutely. Well, I think it's I think you're just at the kind of the cusp of this new sort of inflection point where people are understanding that this capability is out there now,
yep.
but they're really looking for it because the world is becoming just it's demanding, I think, really
because of spatial design,
a better visual experience and a better audio experience because of all the Facebook Lives and YouTube yep. and podcasting and all these new media
yep.
that has popped up, that where everyone and every business and everyone almost as an individual is now their own media company.
And look at when they're taking you've got different I would just say the high quality luxury headphones that are out there, mm-hmm. and some of the great quality that's being produced when it's on your head, right?
Right.
And the more the purist would be, I want to hear it through the air and this kind of thing through speakers and reinforcement that way.
Right.
But it's I think we've become discerning in some ways for that, but at the same time, like Amazon, for example, there's less compression than there is, say, in Spotify. You know what I mean? And so there is a taste for fidelity coming back when people recognize the quality, of what they're listening to. It's not just volume, no pun.
Right.
And so when you go over to the video thing, is kind of going through that same thing. People are watching things on smaller devices. Spaces are getting bigger, more open. There's that need. And here's the big thing. Our baby boomers, which represent such a large part of our population, mm-hmm. are of the age where now they're starting to lose some of their hearing.
Right.
And as they do, they think, clarity could never be more important, which is, again, from my medical days, realizing, how do you see the future, Mitch? Well, that's where I live. I live where I see 1/3 of our population being over 65, and a good number of them having some sort of hearing loss. Mm-hmm. And how do you deal with that? Well, look at the trend the trends that baby boomers have created over the years. Right. As they grew older, as they went through parenthood, look at the brands it built over the years. Look at the GNCs and the Life Fitness. Wall Street with investing, all this stuff.
Right. You know what? That brings up another point that's kind of similar to this is the wellness aspect. So I was actually looking on your website, Audimute.com, by the way.
Thank you.
On your blog, where you have, I think the first blog post now, if you just click on the blog part, has this wellness like infographic. I don't know if you know that's up there. Maybe your team put it up there, but it's awesome, and it talks about all the wellness aspects of good sound quality, and it speaks to me because it's like a passion of mine, like good sound. I hate bad sound, cacophonous sound, even in an office environment, for example, or while you're doing a teleconference or whatever, or you're just hanging out in an environment and you're like, you know what, it sounds good in here. There's not a lot of reflections. It makes you calmer. It really has this real wellness aspect to it. And I know it's more technical than that.
There's actually Kevin on our team sent me an article yesterday, and I love that because that means my people are researching, thinking, they're looking, an article that, I can't remember the statistic. I could pull it up. He texted me. But it's basically something to the effect of like a big thing that people were discussing and why they enjoy working where they work is because of the acoustics.
Right, yeah.
And actually in offices it's very interesting. Not just can acoustics be annoying relative to reflection in a space that's loud or echoey, right? But actually often spaces, and this is where we get into the concept of sound control, sound management, some offices are too quiet. Yeah, and you have to actually put energy into the space.
That's right.
And that's like a masking effect, so that you basically are covering a lot of the day-to-day noise that breaks people's focus on what they're working on.
Right.
So if we're working in the same room, it's nice and quiet, there's no other sound, and the HVAC is humming really low, et cetera. We have to put some energy in that space, or I'm going to hear every keyboard click, every burp, every stomach growl.
Right.
Every key, your chair moving, your pens hitting the surface, everything. It's crazy. Let alone your conversations. It's like you're talking to me, and we're in the same space.
Right.
You got to have a baseline of energy, and that actually works. Sometimes, in fact, people can try this. It's a really great exercise.
Okay.
Next time you're at home and you're trying to focus, and something else is happening in the house, kids, dog, neighbors, people outside, working in the yard, whatever it is.
Right.
You can go to, like 8 hours of brown noise. It's called, brown noise or masking, but brown noise on YouTube, 8 hours of brown noise.
Okay.
And you let this thing play and put it just above the loudest sound that you would be hearing, and let the thing just buzz away.
Right.
And then continue what you're doing. And this thing will fall into the background. If it's too loud, you'll know, because it won't be ambient anymore. It'll jump out. So you just got to put just above the peak sounds that you're hearing, so it buries most of what you're listening to, what you're hearing. And then you're going to find that you don't have that intrusive problem anymore, and you can sit and focus on your whatever.
I love that. I love that idea. I might try that.
You got to try it. It's great.
Cool.
In fact, I sleep with brown noise, the masking device, every night, because then they don't hear the dog jump off the bed, or my wife gets to go to the bathroom. It's all this kind of stuff.
I was going to say sleeping. I do that. Like I often listen to music as I fall asleep, just kind of for those reasons. It sort of like relaxes me.
If it's too quiet,
chills me out.
You almost can hear your own thoughts.
Right. Yeah, right. I don't know why. Maybe that's a good thing, not hearing my own thoughts.
Yeah,
but,
really.
I think I'll try that. Really cool.
That's right. I travel. That's why I use my phone for that, and you can travel with it as well. So that makes you feel kind of back at home, and you can sleep more comfortably, like taking your own pillow with you.
Right. So getting the acoustics right. Yeah. Not necessarily super quiet or super loud or whatever, but just controlled and tweaked in the right way.
Yeah. It's creating the right environment for what you're trying to do and what your intended purpose is for the space.
Right.
That's it. That's what it's about. And so that's why physics and understanding sound and understanding the objectives that are really going on in the space are really important, because you need someone to help guide you through this. This is why we have specialists on staff.
Right.
This is what I do. It's why I'm very passionate about solving these kinds of sound problems, and every single one is unique.
Right.
The best, it's funny, we say this, the best solution is to not need one. So when is this sound happening? When is this happening over here? How is this going on? And the big thing is, can you eliminate it first before you have to actually buy a solution? Because when I tell you don't need something, when I tell you do, you're going to believe me.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the ethics in what we do is very important, because we deal in a voodoo that people kind of don't understand.
So speaking about like all these different applications, so you kind of widened out throughout the, I would say, kind of traditional sound treatment industry. So like offices and restaurants and all those kind of things. But now you're starting to lean into some newer spaces and newer applications that are popping up out there, like podcasting, like esports, and these types of things. So I want to touch on this a little bit.
Yeah, Jim wants to touch on all the cool stuff where he's taking my company, but yes, thank you. And it's cool.
Well, right, it is cool. Well, yeah. So I wanted to bring up, these newer applications. and some of the things I've been able to pull together for you, which is,
Dragging, kicking, screaming.
Yeah.
But we're glad you did.
Right. So, which one was, well, a couple things really. So, putting you in touch with Mitch Zlotnik, which I think I'd like to maybe get your thoughts on kind of the impact of working with them and working with Aya, and then how you were able to attack this new thing where Todd Cochrane was from, who's the founder of Blueberry, the podcast hosting company, and
Very
runs
impressive guy.
Really impressive guy, and he runs 2 big podcasts, Geek News Central and the New Media Show with Rob Greenlee. And these guys are both, Todd is a big OG, podcast, has been podcasting for 13, 14 years, et cetera. Yeah. He's really...
if there was a father of the industry, that's the guy.
That's the guy. That's absolutely. And so he's built his personal studios up in Michigan, so I was able to...
And they look great.
And they look
and they
awesome.
sound awesome.
They awesome. Well, both, and they look great. So tell me about that experience of... I was able to pull you guys together, for this team together, and had the vision of that, like, you can really make an impact in this industry, Audimute, and the special things that you bring to the party. So tell me about that design experience and the installation, et cetera.
It made multidisciplinary approach.
Yeah.
I had the concept for design, what it should look like. Todd knew what he was kind of looking for. He had a sense of he wanted kind of in one space three different types of space. I would say workspaces, and in doing so, it kind of challenged us in one of those spaces because it was completely out of our element. But I'll tell you about that in a second.
Okay.
But Aya really designed a great space, and it's fun and challenging working with designers, especially with her talent and her caliber, because working with Aya has been really amazing because you find that designers, especially before they really know what we do, design without any kind of constraints.
Right.
And what does that mean? So they design for the look and all these kinds of things without knowing necessarily what has to happen, say, in these 3 spaces these 3 workspaces Todd has.
Right.
So multidisciplinary approach. So as she was doing this, we started tweaking with her the design to say, okay, can you do this? Can we do this? Can we make it like this? And can you leverage this kind of product here? Can we get this surface to be something more like this? Can we break up this surface here to leverage diffusion, things like this? We needed functional shelves in one of the spaces. We also needed diffusion in that space, and we also, it needed to look nice. So all these things are kind of coming together for the design of which I laid out. And then not only that, she did all the measurements. We had this whole thing. You guys went up there yourself to look at the space. We had no idea what we're getting into. Did a site audit,
right? Space, right?
Which, by the way, doesn't always have to happen because we just simply need to know. Sometimes we're looking at drawings. Sometimes spaces don't exist yet,
right?
But most often they do. And we can speak directly to what we need to tweak and do in the space to gain sound control to produce the intended outcome.
Right.
So our work with Todd, one of the rooms was just simply a decorative thing, almost like a demo type space. I can't remember. It was the one with the high table.
So it's 3 spaces where one was for a product demo area. So he's got like
that was for product demo.
Yeah, a flat table where, because people send him products and he reviews products for his shows.
Cool. Second one was like his
main podcasting studio space.
Right. That's the one with the shelves.
Yeah. So he does, he does video podcasts. So the visual, and for all these spaces, he does visual.
And then the curveball for us.
And then the curveball was
and the new innovation, which was to have a acoustical green screen.
Yeah. Complete video studio that required a green screen. And I think this is I think the first time that I know of, like just historically, that a green space has been built with acoustic materials.
Yeah,
is that true?
I think it's true. I would say it's first. I would say people have had acoustical materials in some other form, maybe off
curtains
camera,
or something, or maybe green curtains or something.
To be the surface that is acoustical and green, if you will, for the, or it could be blue, depending on whatever.
Yeah, and the matched green color that people like to use. So that's one of the capabilities you have, is to do the Pantone colors, whatever.
And it was really cool to be able to work in that space. So again, I love applications like this where we can challenge ourselves. We need to step up to do this, whether it's a hanging solution, a unique application. It just makes it fun in what we do. So all 3 came together. Todd got an amazing space. Opposite all 3 of these rooms is a really cool design that just looks cool and serves to basically prevent any kind of slapback from where he typically is facing. So there's nothing coming back at him from that opposite wall, but it looks cool. So you look at the pictures of the space, and it just acoustically it's great, visually it's great, and Todd's front office blew me away. I mean, that guy's got a lot of Navy experience. The man has done some great service for our country
for many years,
and he is very impressive. Just listening to him. I mean, I would love to I have to take up drinking again. I have to sit down and have a beer with the man and just listen to the stories that he'd be allowed to share.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right. No, with no podcast involved in that conversation, but
but a very impressive career in the military, and then kind of found himself becoming this niching himself into this podcast circle, and not only that, but kind of writing the book about it.
Oh my God! Well, he did some, obviously he was into technology, did some geeky things when he was in the Navy, and that's how he got turned on to this whole space. And he wrote a book early on, a book about podcasting. He's had a sponsor, I think GoDaddy is his main sponsor that he's had for 12, 13 years. I mean, he's really pretty impressive what he's been able to do, and just turn a lot of people onto the value of it, all the technologies that are swirling around it.
He's in the right space. And again, you pushing us in that direction to kind of come full circle is that, to recognize that you take I would say, the average guy, if you will, and suddenly builds up this following and this recognizes this niche and has this leadership capability within the industry is our recognition that, hey, there's sound problems here. You can listen to some of these podcasts and you say, wow, did you not understand anything about sound when you made this? In fact, I've been watching some professional videos on YouTube and things like this where you're watching interviews and things. I'm like, my gosh, didn't somebody consider sound when they were doing these interviews?
Oh, yes. For you, because you're in the business, it pops right out at you, immediately, right?
Yes. Let's get in a cave and have an interview.
Yeah, me too. And it's just like,
engineers love that.
It's amazing how, I've seen some very big names or whatever that have had no thoughts about how horrible their stuff sounds.
You know what it is? It's homologous to, finding yourself with someone famous or something, someone or big opinion leader for yourself or whatever, and then you're going to take a ton of pictures, all out of focus.
Exactly.
And you're like, oh no!
Like you would not put up with that.
All that time, all that. When am I going to get that opportunity again? Yeah. And it's like, you meet with LeBron James. You have all this stuff going on. It's like that was great, and you got 20 pictures. Not one of them is in focus.
Right. Exactly.
And it's
a great way to put it.
And it's exactly what it is. It's homologous to visual noise, having this echo in the background and all this room effect and reflections off the table and all these things. There's a way that this is done. It is not art. There's part of it that's art, but there's a lot of science behind it. And this is why people, we welcome them to call us, and speak to somebody who's got the experience and can help you understand what you need to do in your particular space.
Right. Well, I think this combination with the the visual aspect, it's just like again with all these things that are popping up, application wise, it's just really a good time for everyone to learn about it. Everyone's kind of getting into it and is kind of requiring it really. And in terms of working with Todd, you're also doing the Blueberry corporate headquarter space, right?
That's being designed as we speak.
So it's not installed yet. Okay,
Correct.
I wanted to get the update on that, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
I'll talk to you later about it.
Me too. I literally, I was working on it there. You know what's great? I'm not 100% familiar with every single thing our company's doing. Because people are creating, they're taking I got the vision.
You're the founder
but
and CEO, man.
But they ran away with it. And this guy's coming up with these really cool things. And then they're ideas that are cooler than what I came up with. It's like, wow, this is great. Because if it was all about me, then I don't have a sustainable model. I don't have a company that can go on without me. That was my initial vision, which is to have a company that works without me. Not because I don't want to be engaged and involved and do these things, but I didn't want to have to be the only one. Right. That if I died, which I will one day, I want the company to go on. I want there to be people who are passionate about a vision of where we can go and what we can do with a powerful team. Right. So that's what's really exciting about this. I got to tell you another funny application.
Okay.
So this is where the sound geek in me comes out.
All right.
So I'm visiting my aunt who's at a assisted living currently, and she's on oxygen.
Oh wow.
And so trying to have a conversation with her in this small room, 4 walls enclosed. Sound problem, etc. Sounds like a cave. So she's hung some art. Again, not absorptive art, not like acoustic, Audimute image panels or something, but just art. And of course, there's this oxygen concentrator pumping away, and it just is absolutely killing me.
Oh.
And I'm like, so I can get by. I'm only there for short visits, and she's comfortable with it. And I wasn't even thinking it was a problem until she calls me about a week and a half after she's been in the new space. And the neighbor is complaining that my aunt's TV is up too loud, that she can hear it through the walls when she listens to the TV as she falls to sleep, like as you do. You said. So I'm like, okay, great. So again, best solution to not need one, right? How do we turn the TV down but let her hear? So what she's missing is what? clarity of sound.
That's right.
She can't hear the TV.
That's the exact problem we were describing before, where it's like you turn yourself up because you think that's
you can't
the
hear
problem.
yourself,
you can't
right.
hear yourself. You turn the
bother
your
the
sound
neighbor.
source up.
Now she can hear it, but that's not the
answer. There's no clarity. You can
There's
actually
no
hear the volume, the energy's there, but you just can't hear it cleanly. Right?
Thank you. It's exactly no articulation. So what we did, I built a literally like a 5-sided enclosure that the oxygen concentrator just sits in.
Okay.
Made room for venting of the heat. Looked at the device, looked at the application. In fact, something we probably should market now because that's the entrepreneurial smell blood in the water, right?
Right.
But we took this thing back, I kid you not, 75% plus. And now we're in that room together.
And now she can listen to her TV
And
lower
she's
volume.
not had any complaints since, because now she can hear her TV in the other room without the oxygen concentrator overpowering the TV in the bedroom, in the next room. And she can fall asleep there. And so it's to come up with a solution like that for family is really, really special. At the same time, proving a product, but it's great because I know I've made her life easier, literally. And you see someone who's challenged with,
it makes a huge impact. An immediate impact, which is cool, right?
Yeah. So literally, you change lives. I mean, people they're in the medical field. I have friends that are doctors and attorneys and this whole thing, and they really seem to affect people a lot more than I do. And I feel like, gosh, am I making the right contributions to the world before while I'm here? And you really feel like you're doing the right thing when you do things like that. When you realize that sound is intrusive, and the sound problem, we always say it's like a good haircut. If you don't notice it, it's good. And when there's a bad haircut, man, that's pretty loud. You're like, ooh. And, how do you fix these things so that people can, they basically, you remove the sound barriers. They fall into the background again, and you don't notice them. And that feels pretty good.
Oh, well, I'm telling you, the wellness aspect is really speaking to me more and more now. Like, I just really, it's just, I get so passionate about it. Like when I go into restaurants or clubs or any spaces that are loud, even you go to like a Cavs game, for example, it's so loud in the stadium. Like I always wear earplugs now. It's just the wellness aspects are really important. And you know what? I said the Cavs, I think, because it was on my mind that we just went to the Cavs
Legion Lair.
Yeah, the Cavs Legion. That's the name.
Cavs Legion.
That's their name of their esports gaming team, Cavs Legion GC Gaming Club. They call it.
And they have the Legion Lair, which is
the Legion Lair, which we just went to. Which I don't know if anyone listening out there is hip to in the esports world, but
it's
the
coming.
NBA,
you will be.
Oh my God, it's coming big time, right? And the NBA already has a sanctioned esports league that plays the NBA 2K video game. And the Cavs have built here a local facility, and they're building them for, I think it's like at least 22 or 23 out of the 30 NBA teams have their esports.
Right. And all the games are played in, New York? So you still have to go central?
I think there's an officially sanctioned NBA 2K stadium, I think in Long Island or Brooklyn, I can't remember where it is. It's in New York City. But locally, the teams train at the local facilities. And I think the Cavs are unique in the NBA that there's only a handful, maybe 2 or 3 teams that have built stylized, custom, really sweet environments basically for their esports team. And we have one of them here locally in Cleveland.
It is quite impressive. I mean, that was probably the most comfortable gaming chair I've ever sat in.
Yeah.
That was really
awesome.
cool. My son would kill for that.
So we were just there recently. So what did you see? What did we find out there? So this was awesome.
Boy, Lair is a good name for it, because when you think Lair, you think cave, right? Like Bat Cave. Well, it sounded like the Bat Cave.
Yeah.
So, which made it feel like the Bat Cave.
Right.
So unless you want to work out and do your training, and even when you're trying to communicate with each other in that space, it's loud. I mean, we were there for presentation. Someone was standing, maybe 25 feet away, and you could barely understand.
I was going to say, this was a perfect, I guess, demonstration of bad sound, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so we were there with a group that they were going to show off the facility, whatever, and so a couple of people just stood up, and there was maybe, I don't know, 10 or 12 people there.
Yep.
Like it wasn't a big group, but because of the nature of the space, they're trying to speak, and it's just bouncing all over. And if you were more than 4 or 5 feet away from the speaker, it's like, I can't understand anything the guy's saying.
Yeah, and it's frustrating, and then it kind of defeats the whole purpose.
And people just start tuning out because they're like, I can't hear them. I'm going to look at the video screen in front of me. Or
right.
Whatever,
so it just destroys the whole concept.
Exactly.
Presentation isn't effective.
Right.
But what was cool is they did take an old historical building, which again, now that integration becomes even more important, because you have to be sensitive to some of the historical surfaces that they would want to maintain and the elements in the space, of course, which we would do. But it also kind of helps dictate what type of solution and how we would solve that sound problem, what the strategy becomes. And so, but especially with the theming and all the cool stuff, the space looks really awesome. It just needs to have that acoustical balance and control. And then not only with that, in the other room, one of the rooms there where they do video production, they have a major sound problem. They literally have a square room, 8-foot ceiling, square room, and they're doing video in there. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, how do you mix for that? And again, they will not produce anything of quality audio from an audio perspective until they fix that room.
Right.
I told John Summers, I'm like, hey man, if you want to come over and grab some sheets, it's like borrowing a cup of sugar from your neighbor. At least your video guy Patrick is going to be like sane, and you know what I mean.
Right.
And you're talking about a solution less for $200.
I think there's central servers are in there for it, and there's like fan noise and all kinds of stuff going on in there, right?
And we could have such success in there very inexpensively enough where I would say, look, what I want is the bigger opportunity to help them brand the space and treat it at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they have they're obviously the Fatheads thing with I think it's owned by Dan Gilbert or something. But the owner of the Cavs, but it's it's great decals, things like this, but nothing acoustical.
Right.
So leveraging that would be important and solve the video production issue as well as the mixing engineering side, where it's all in the same spot. Then you have the 2 podcast rooms, which were really
podcast/streaming room. I think they were calling it streaming rooms,
something like that. And
so
they were
video streaming, audio, obviously
perfect square rooms with glass on one side, drywall on the other, and they did put in like what they. It's a I know the name. Well, it's kind of a felt. It's actually called High-Tex. It's a poly.
Kind of a thin material, though.
Yeah, polyester based type animal that's thin. And it's acoustical. It's this. It's like what can an architect pull out of a book? It's a
little absorptive, but it doesn't.
Yeah, it's like, well, if I got an absorptive surface, so this must be good. No, you need the right absorption. You need the right diffusion in a space that is that small.
Yeah.
None of this was considered because the problem that you have people trying to play now in the space that we're in is they get designed. They think, okay, it has some kind of acoustical properties, therefore it's going to be good for this. No, you have to talk to someone who knows from sound in order to execute the right way.
Right.
That's part of the strategy. It could be part of the surfaces, but you may need some of the things in there to solve the sound problem. So as soon as I sat down, remember, right at the microphone, they had a nice standing wave, right around that 200 hertz that you could hear the resonation right where the mic is.
Right.
So what does that mean?
So here's can you give a tip for people that are listening out there? How do you find a standing wave in a space? Like, what's your process now that you've experienced?
Well, it depends what you do. First, you got what are you doing in the space, which is really important.
Right.
What are you recording?
Right.
And so, how do you find them?
Because you notice it right away, and you could hum at the right frequency.
I can hum it because I can sing and I can look for them. I basically do this. I can hear where the energy is greater, and I hear the resonation on particular frequencies just from singing.
Okay, so if you take your voice and you just move it up and down like an octave or two, like.
If you do it really slowly, you'll hear that. You'll hear them. And I actually did a
video. When you get a resonant peak, it'll start to vibrate. You'll hear the pressure
louder,
in your ears.
Right.
You hear it a little louder.
You'll hear an echo at a particular frequency. Probably do it very slowly, and just and then you'll start hearing a particular frequency that's going to ring a little louder. So usually, I'll instead of doing it as a one solid, I would do that kind of a thing.
All right.
Just because then you'll hear the ring after you hit that frequency where you've got the wave right near the microphone.
Gotcha.
So what do you do to get rid of these? Well, change the shape of the room, maybe possibly some absorption. You're going to address some of the surfaces,
right. In a small space, having parallel surfaces is not the best idea for.
No,
sound,
it's really
right?
bad. That's bad.
Okay.
You want diffusion. You want to break up sounds that's scattered, and you don't have those waves. Almost like water swirling around a rock in one particular spot. It's kind of stuck there based on how air is moving, how sound is moving through the medium in that space. So, which is air. So I think that you have and where the reflections are. It's complex. I don't want to get too geeky, but basically, you need to fix those because then you don't get a dry recording.
Right.
And then how do you mix when you've got effect? It's like mixing from the Batcave. You can't get rid of some of the effect.
No, once it's there, you can't remove it. I hear people. I'm in these Facebook groups for podcast editing, and that's the question every day that all these newbies coming into the space. It's like, how can I get rid of this echo? There's almost no way to get rid of it. Honestly, once it's recorded,
it's there. There you go.
Yeah,
enjoy. Like I said, you just took a bunch of fuzzy pictures of your
exactly. You could kind of clean it up a little bit, maybe with some EQ or something, but it's tough. You want
to record clean.
And
when you have that, and you've got a clean space, and clean spaces aren't expensive. So those are the big issues that we saw when we were at the Legion Lair. which I then sent a proposal, kind of like, hey, not a proposal because I really don't know what they want to do yet, but I said, if I were you,
this is what you
this is what I would budget to pretty much finish everything. And I started with something small. Say, look, start here, do this, this, and this, and let's get this going. And I said, and even if that's an issue, why don't we just get, and budget might be an issue because it's toward the end of the year. They didn't plan on this, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
Then let's, come borrow some sheets, man, and let's clean up that video space instantly so that Patrick can at least do his work.
Right.
I mean, the guy can't, you could lose people, great employees because they can't perform their best work. It's frustrating.
Right.
Because you don't treat the room.
Right. Yeah, because it just wasn't a thought when they were going into it.
And I told them I wouldn't charge them for it. Why don't you just get, I'm glad to do it because local business, I love being part of the Cavs. I work out with Len Komorowski a couple days a week, inadvertently. We work out together.
I think he's the VP of something over there.
He's the CEO.
He's the CEO. Okay.
Which I didn't know.
I didn't know that either.
Club where I'm at, it's just a great place to work out, and it's kind of a really good, diverse crowd and everything. And people don't really. It's not one of those rub elbows, schmooze kind of places. It's just, but it's just really.
Well, I think it's a great space to be connected to because again, this whole esports trend is moving, and I think it's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of other local spaces that people will want to produce. Like I can see like in the next maybe even year, 18 months where, that's the Cavs facility, but we need another public facility, or every city is going to need a public facility that is esports oriented for their kids or for after school programs.
And they're actually looking to do rentals of those spaces too, because you can have a party in there and bring it. It's
absolutely.
The gaming.
I mean, you can see
Mecca.
the whole
It's
thing
great.
that this is, but treating the sound part of it is going to be key because people are playing video games. They want to observe video games. They want to stream from those facilities, et cetera. Like
they want to do things in a space with an intended purpose. And if they have a sound issue, so the best thing to do, my best advice for anybody listening relative to sound is, if you're remodeling a space, if you're changing anything about a space, if you're moving into a new space, if you have a friend who's moving into a new space, by golly, talk to someone who understands acoustics that can look ahead in terms of how they intend to use that space, whether it's a home or apartment or office, or I'm moving my office from one end of the building to the other. I mean, all these kinds of things. When you're moving spaces, you got to know to talk to someone who can ask the right questions so you don't have a sound problem when you get there. Because there's nothing worse than, and every time we deal with this, it's a surprise. And sometimes people don't even realize, well, we're just going to put up like a curtain here. We're going to divide this room in half so we can use this for this and that for that or whatever. And while I was treating a restaurant and they're trying to divide this back area, I'm like, Lisa, that's how fast people don't think of us. That's how fast you're thinking of the solution. You're trying to get this thing fixed over here or separate this one thing, but you're not thinking about the sound and what that's going to do to the existing solution that I've put in, or how might you avoid problems to get the intended outcome you think is going to happen. How will sound play a role in there? Because there's no better way to destroy a great experience than having a sound problem. It's the worst.
Yeah, certainly in a restaurant or public space, it's
it's the worst.
Yeah,
so
it is
talk
the worst.
to somebody. Call us. It's free.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, let's raise everyone's consciousness level about their sound environment.
Yes.
Really, I mean,
because solving them in the rears is what we end up doing, and it's easier, and we can be more strategic about it relative to when we hear about the problem.
I gotcha. Well, sounds cool, and I'm glad you guys are getting into these new spaces now. It's really cool. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen over the next year, 18 months with all the getting kind of in the world of influence and content marketing, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's new to us. We're technically a manufacturer, but our model is direct to end user. So our solutions, I'm very edgy about those things. I want to hear how people are using them. I want to hear, that's why I do a lot of installs here locally. I want to have my hands on. We've spent a lot of time and attention to making sure that things are easy to put in, they're affordable, safe to handle, from the baby's room to, big open space in a church, whatever, band practice space. It doesn't matter. We just want to make sure that we can get there before there's a problem, before the cops start showing up. Because when we hear about, I can't tell you how many times we've heard like this downtown. There's a guy who's got this space there, and now he's already in a fight with his neighbor. How do you put a solution at that point? Because no one's happy with anybody.
Oh, yeah.
I'm coming in so late to the game.
Right, yeah.
It's hard to make people happy at that point. So do yourself a favor.
Think about acoustics early and often.
But relative to the new markets and things, I think coming to the big entrepreneurial question, I'm just hoping that my team continues to think openly and looks for, sees the opportunity in the feedback that we receive from our clients, and in the things that we read and hear about, and then you ask the question, how do we fit into that?
Well, that leads me into, there's always a couple questions I like to ask people when they come on the podcast, and two are kind of related to this idea you're touching on here. One's about technology. So the way things are moving and the way technology is spawning all these new applications and things. How do you think about technology for your own business and leveraging those things? So it could be something just in your personal life, how you think about technology and kind of trying to stay ahead of the curve, or it could be something systems within the business.
Wow. I really think it starts with the mission of a business, because that's who you want to be, what you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. And the personal side, and I'll come back to that. Okay. And then on the personal side, it's, again, how do you want to live your life? What do you enjoy doing? Where do you spend your time? Mm-hmm. And it's I would call myself an early adopter of technology. I like to explore, like to tinker, same. And for example, tinkering with the some of the higher end VR systems that I've set up at my house. Okay. Looking at the potential of virtual exposition and things like this, and the amount of time it saves.
Right.
Things I can go and I can explore virtually without having to travel, and because time is,
right,
scarce. Free time, at least. And then you've got, at the office, things that you're trying to accomplish. You want to find where technology can serve you best to then serve your customers. How do we make the experience of interacting with our company better, different, nichier, whatever, and not about the technology, but about really, how do we serve someone better? Like, for example, if right now we use just the iPhone to virtually beam into your space, and I can take a walkthrough with you. Right. You know what I mean? You can send me a few pictures too, but if you're walking through, you really can speak about the problem, and you can really hear the customer's voice relative to the temperature of the problem. Is it, oh my God, this is like, I can't live another day, or is it, my life would be improved with this? And then we want to help explain what the value of that is to their business or what they're trying to accomplish by having the sound barriers removed.
Right.
So how do we leverage technology?
So let me ask you a question. So would someone be like walking through their space, like on FaceTime or Facebook Live or something, so you can actually see and hear what's going on? Yep. I really like that. I really like that idea of starting with the end goal first, or your vision first of what you're trying to do, and laying the technologies against all those
versus
things,
here's this great technology. Now, sometimes it works the opposite way. Wow, what a great technology! How do we leverage this?
Yeah.
Now that could happen. But I think
it happens more like that. I guess in the tech world, it's sort of like, here's a new gadget, let's figure out something to do with it.
But then you end up with a weapon of mass distraction.
Well, exactly.
Okay, and not something that is going to be within the wheelhouse. If you already know what you're doing, you're trying to accomplish, and you can leverage ways of getting where you want to go, with the map you've already drawn, it's a lot better than something that, this is really cool. Is it really worth going so far out of your element to develop something to be able to play in this other market, which may or may not, or borderline helps your business? You know what I mean? Right. And so it has the potential to be great distraction, despite the fact that it's fun to use or exciting to be a part of, and people like the story behind it. But it's like, how do people really use it, and how do we leverage it? And then when you have that, and there's real roots inherent in, I guess, inside the technology itself, like the applicability, if that's such a word, of the FaceTime and the virtual visits that we can do. It's got to be something that is just so obvious that this really ties in. Now we can be on site with somebody and not have to fly there and go there. Right. We don't even have to. We can look at plans, we can see pictures, but it's like, but to beam there is just that whole relationship, understanding the sound problem, hearing the customer's voice, understanding maybe the technical capabilities. You can get so much answered by seeing the space, getting a feel for what you're trying to do. That really fits. Right.
You know in terms of being obvious, this leads to my next question. I like the term that you used, obvious, okay? And that it's about how do you continue to keep your mind open to different technologies or different things, or pivoting into different spaces.
You get a guy like Jim Cirillo, you listen to his podcast, you hear all the new shit going on, if I can use the word shit.
Right.
Get a guy like Jim who can keep you abreast of everything new and different, and challenge you with, hey, here's what's going on. How does that fit in? And podcast, while
I appreciate you say that. I'm trying to do it for myself.
Yeah.
This is my own veiled, reinvention of myself, because the world's being reinvented. But I try to do that for my clients and other people I work with, obviously. And that's the challenge. I think that's the challenge for all of us going forward is we might have a vision of what we're trying to do, but having this blind spot of not understanding that this new thing, actually it is super important to my vision.
But
people just can blow it off and don't get it.
I think they can. And you know why? Because they don't think, and here's the other thing. Not everybody can do this, okay? And it's a mentality of continuous improvement. Okay, there's always a sense about me of dissatisfaction with how things are. I always want to make something better, more efficient, improve it, make it easier. This is what they thought they were trying to do, but this is what they really did, or this is what they could do with this thing, and they didn't realize it, because that's how my brain works. So if you try and force everybody in the industry, in your company, or to think that way, you're going to come up very, very shy and be very disappointed in your team, thinking everybody thinks that way. No, you have to identify the visionaries on your team and they'll be the ones that are probably already familiar with using, looking for those technologies, and keep them reading, keep them seeing, keep them listening, keep them researching as part of a planned, again, structure organized, as a planned effort to learn something new, bring something new to the next meeting, something that's great, because now they're going to spend an hour looking for something cool to bring in because they want to bring something, and that triggers other ideas. Other people might know how to integrate it once someone identifies what that improvement or that technology is, but they don't necessarily know how to find it or know how to recognize that there might be a potential. And so, again, finding those special people, I think, is a big way to do that. Also, it's I like the concept of a schedule. At this point, we will search, we will look, we'll see what's going on with this. We'll subscribe to these things that pique our, have a meeting about that type of thing. The other thing that I think is really important is to, relative to the schedule, it's like PR. Who thinks about public relations where something happens in the media and suddenly you have to go, wow, how does that fit into our business, and how might we leverage that on the marketing side of our own public relations? And so PR is one of those things that gets missed, just like overlooking technology or not seeing technology. Huge opportunities in PR that just kind of fade away. Promotional value, and tying into current events. And how do you really see that bridge? Not everybody will. The few people on your team that do need to be the ones monitoring that. And again, with a set time, with the schedule, you're asked the right questions of the team and bring those ideas or search for what's out there.
I like this idea of understanding that there's different people that think differently, that you'll have different people on your team. You need to kind of keep this mix. It's all about sort of the recipe that you create for your business of like, we need these different flavors, these different types of people, the people understanding that not everyone can see this. This is what I've learned about myself, actually.
Welcome to get out of your own way.
And I've been frustrated with, other maybe jobs I've had or other clients I've worked with where it's like, it's so crystal clear to me the things I see. But sometimes when I work with these other people, other team members, they literally can't see them. They're like, it's so frustrating for me to work with them sometimes. So I'm kind of trying to scope out my own space where I'm like, I find my more like-minded people and people that are open to the value that I can bring for them. You know what I mean?
And the really good ones are folks like me that need an engineering brain like you. So, and I recognize that. And I say, wow, this is really cool, because I'm not looking for someone like me. I'm looking for someone different than me. Right. And you want to find someone who values someone who's different than them versus someone who wants to find someone like them.
That's the key. So maybe you said it better than I could. Someone who values people that are not like them, that they understand, hey, I need these other types of whatever avenues to
if you look at the DISC personality assessment, that's a really good place to start in terms of it. While it defines like personality and gives you some indication of tendencies of people, it does give you indication of different brain types and different areas of focus. Like I can tell you that my slow and steady from the DISC assessment, which you guys should go now research now that you've heard about this.
Okay.
But he's a slow and steady guy. He doesn't want to make mistakes. He's not a risk taker.
Right.
That would be Tyler on our team, who's our industrial engineer.
Right.
And while I totally appreciate that, that's great.
Yeah.
But again, I've budgeted to make mistakes, and he likes to hit sure things. And I'm darn it, how do I get him to think forward and take a risk? I did this. He's going to make sure it works and try and get a sample here first and do all these things before he spends any money. Go get the thing. If you feel 75% good about it, how about if you say 50%? Roll the dice. What's the worst going to happen? Okay, you made a mistake. It's okay. We're funded for that. We planned for that. So now, but he's my opposite there. So I try to really focus on how do I get him to be comfortable making mistakes. And while I've helped him do that and be more comfortable in the gray areas where the future is unknown for a particular project or objective, he's helped me in terms of how do I structure maybe some of my craziness to align so I can bring those ideas in more of a realistic form. So they're really beneficial.
Tyler's amazing at what he does.
And you got to share,
awesome.
but you got to share back and forth. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And again, while I've got a lot of folks that really understand that concept of the structuring and organizing that needs to happen, it's just you want to make sure that people are comfortable making those mistakes, exploring, and getting that those brain types of difference together, different personalities to function, and respecting the differences. Those are values. If you have somebody that doesn't really get that, then they really probably shouldn't be in the organization because they're
certainly they probably wouldn't fit in here very well.
They wouldn't fit, but in other companies, people might want everyone to be exactly the same.
Yeah, right. It
non-risk takers.
Goes back to your goal, your vision, what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, the company often takes the personality of the owner. You talk about learning a lot about yourself, because when you start seeing all the things you really don't like about yourself and manifesting themselves in your operations and in your people, because it's who you are. Right. Like, for example, everyone creating.
That's a rude awakening when you
everybody trying to do what I do. Yeah.
You're like, wow, I guess this is who I really am.
I do that. That's bad. Right. And I see why it's good for me, but it doesn't work as a tactical implementation. Right. You can start with even this instead of DISC assessment and understanding people is really important. DISC, is a personality thing. Understanding that, there's also just the concept of understanding something as basic as strategic, tactical, and operational, which goes back to more like the Michael Gerber type thing with the E-Myth Revisited from way back in 1995. But it still has great application for today. It talks a lot about documentation, working on your business, not in it, and just gives great examples. But part of that is understanding the role in the company, which he calls the tactician, but this ties into what I'm saying, where you have a strategic brain, you have folks that work in the strategic area, you have folks that tend to focus in the tactical and the how, and then you have the operators that are actually the implementers of those things. And you have people who excel in all those areas.
You need all of them.
But you're not going to have, like my, just telling my son about this, who's an MBA student, because he tried to ground his education from the theoretical to the real life application, because people come out with MBAs and think they know how to do everything, and it's like, great, now how about some real world experience?
Exactly.
Here's a hammer and nail. Learn how to do some work, because you really have to understand how to build a company, and that's one step at a time. It's not, you don't walk into the ivory office. In fact, there shouldn't ever be one, in my opinion. Right, exactly. If you have the right owner and the right leader. But it's so we were talking about the strategic, tactical, operator level thing, which is really important for the perspective of the difference of thinking. I live in the strategic. That's where my brain is, out in front, looking at opportunities, visionary. I didn't choose that role. It's where my brain is. Right. Yeah. But put me in the tactical of someone else's vision and how to get there. I'm okay there, but it's not as strong as, that's where your managers are. Right. Your leaders are in the strategic often, and then your operators are the people that are they're great workers that just knock it out. They want to be focused. They don't want to be they don't want to deal with all this gray area. They're process oriented. They really want to just jam. Let me get to this. I want to jam on this and knock it out and do a great job. And they could even be 9 to 5. They just want to do this, and they want to know their job, want to do a great job, and get out. Awesome. And you need every single people at every level, but understanding where people are thinking, even where ideas come from, is really important. I love when people get together. They want to have like a big strategic session, session type of thing, and all they're doing is talking about tactical things, or they're talking about like more tactical, and no one's talked about strategic because they don't get how to plan. Right. And that again is a special brain type in itself. Not many people
hard to identify for themselves.
Biggest challenges we've had in our business been to find. Is to understand that not everybody can create the structures and organize. Okay, great people are great working in them. Right. But recognizing how the structures get created, something completely different. Right. And
that's a kind of a more meta thought process. It's just a little bit different.
It's an operations brain. Yeah. It's a tactic person more than strategic, and so it's but we've had to do it in every department as we've grown. Human resources, accounting. Our solutions area, production certainly, and it's really been critical. Marketing is the one we're challenged with now, and it's like, I failed 3 times trying to structure our HR with all these people, and it was very difficult because we had different customers internally that we were serving, and so I needed to we need to come up with something. And I was like, I literally talked to my HR lawyer who wanted to come in, work in the day-to-day because she'd never done that. She but really she knows all the stuff, so why not, right?
Yeah.
Didn't really work out. Not her fault. She can work in it. She couldn't create the structures, right?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Connect all the parts and then connect those parts to the business and all those things. See how we use it every day. How does the business leverage this? It wasn't her thing.
Takes that unique person that can make all the connections. And
and a lot of that goes with, it's an operations brain. So realizing that after I failed 2 more times after that with an HR consultant and then with someone I tried to bring in, to do that, strike 3. And I said, wait a minute here, this is operational. And I got Kevin, who was my operations guy, and I said, hey, this is your thing. It doesn't sound like your thing.
That's right.
And I don't want you.
It's called marketing. There's a lot of operational stuff behind it. Right?
It's all operational. First, we get the structures. We get these things in place.
Exactly.
What are the parts? What are the moving parts? What are the dependencies in the organization? What should be the contact? What's the communication look like? How do we set this thing up? How do we, in HR, it was like, how do we create a centralized repository? How do we make we started with a mantra: find and keep the best people, fortify the company culture, and protect the business as an employer. And bam, now we had a direction. And now we needed, to make, find and keep the best people. How do you find them? That was the whole, recruiting thing. And how do we look for people? I mean, from there, we were able to develop such structure by having a very simple, this is what we want this department to really do for this company. And all those things served each other, safety, everything tied in because, protecting the business, and while making it a great place to work. So that would let you find the best people because they wanted to work somewhere safe. They wanted to have a culture that was fun. They wanted to be, et cetera, et cetera. And then we put structures in there that let everyone be involved, with, just using an HRIS was a huge step for us because we had a centralized repository, like a database for human resources. And there's a ton of them out there. So it's just important to have a centralized repository instead of, we recognize that HR was on everybody's desks, different desks of managers instead of, in a centralized place. So that just training HR, being familiar with the with the appropriate things to, how to wear the HR hat. When do you have to put that on? What do conversations sound like when that hat needs to be put on to protect the business, right? And fortify our culture, who we are, and finding and keeping the best people. So our the structuring was all an operational thing, which we never saw coming. Right. Same thing with accounting. And now we're getting good at it.
Makes sense in retrospect, but you think it's a completely separate discipline somehow.
We need a market. We've had trouble. We're struggling with marketing in a huge way. In fact, our operational expertise, and production has gone much faster than the growth in the marketing area because we haven't structured and organized that. We've brought in some really great high caliber people that we're kind of leaning on their success in what they've done in other places, and they kind of bring that expertise to the table, and they try and start getting going and all that. And it's like, you can't do it without the structures. But if the structures were there, I know what I'm trying to do. I know what my brand looks like. I know what the tone is supposed to be when we talk about it. I know, when all those things are there, now they understand what we're about, who we're trying to be. Now we can look at all these other tactical things that you want to implement with the strategic defined.
Right.
And that's where... and then it'll help your life managing your day-to-day folks who are writing content, certainly. Who are updating things online and running the CMS for the website and all those things. So it's really a recognition of the need for structure and organization for people and the right structure, the right organization, so that ordinary folks can do extraordinary things. And that's Michael Gerber. I wish I could say I meant it, but it's just, if you have the right structures and the right processes and everything's defined, then ordinary folks can do amazing things just by following the steps. It's like having a secret recipe. You make the recipe, the sauce is always good. Here's our recipe. Here's our operating manual is Audimute, and the outcome is taking care of our customers and providing the intended outcomes for our customers. Happens every time. Why? Because it's what we do. It's a process. It's not guesswork. Yeah. There's a proven methodology.
Just building it into your process, so it makes sense.
And then you realize that your process works, and you have to give it a name. Because I think branding process is important. Because why do you think people have ISO 9000 and Malcolm Baldrige and JACO for medical organizations like hospitals and such, and medical equipment companies? They get JACO accredited because people want to know you're borrowing credibility from a preset.
People want to know that you're basing it on something, a structure, some kind of process.
Someone else's processes, so that now if there's a problem, you know how this gets handled, right? Malcolm Baldrige would have a particular process, all these things. There's probably a ton of other organizations,
some kind of trust or comfort level,
certifying organizations that do this, and that's where it's important because then you're able to, you want to basically have your own voodoo, your own blend, your own process is defined for the same reason, your own standards. And that's why people will do business with you when they understand that you have those things in place.
Right.
And when you publish them and you say, look, it's not guesswork.
Well, it's a distinguisher out there in the
successful.
market, right? So people will come back to you. They know, hey, they have a nice system in place. They can always rely on it, whatever, count on it.
Yeah. But it's not like, oh, Mitch is going to come out and he's going to do this great work. It's like, I'm going to follow a process that works every time.
Right.
It's what makes us who we are. In fact, part of that is what we call 5Q, qualify, quantify, quit, quill, quality. We have a few thought models around this place.
That's a lot of Q's right there. All right.
I know. Qualify, quantify, quit, quill, quality. And so when we evaluate an opportunity, best solution not to need one, you're kind of, it's really, there's a method behind how we do everything.
Right.
And when you think that way, you're in good hands. And that also builds trust because there is a system you can trust. It's a real thing. And we can publish it. And we haven't, we will be, but it's exciting because that's why we're successful. And none of our competition do that. Nobody publishes their
standards, yeah.
Their voodoo.
Some larger corporate organizations do occasionally, but yeah.
If you see people define their process, like their method, here's how we do it.
Right.
It's great. Because, you won't get Coke publishing their recipe anytime soon, but you will get an organization that says, we follow these steps. Fine, but at least it's not just what we're going to wing it. Hopefully we're successful.
Right. Well, speaking of these 5 Qs, I have one more Q for you.
Go.
Okay.
Sorry.
So my last question for you is thinking about this growth and thinking about putting in these processes, et cetera, and knowing that you got to take on some different niches and the technology is always just changing. What's a reinvention revelation is what I call it. Something that you've learned throughout all of these processes and these ways you've had to pivot, throughout your career, being an entrepreneur, et cetera. What's one takeaway that you can share with people that you've learned along the way? Like a reinvention revelation, like something that you wouldn't have known about yourself or didn't know until you got here, I'm
going to use an example that you brought up, that these are the things that you realize after, 15, 20 years of trying to figure things out that you wish someone else would know. Okay, you ready for this?
Okay.
Humility.
Oh.
Get out of your own way.
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
Get over yourself. Get out of your. Don't be an asshole. No one wants to work for a douchebag.
Nope.
Let people do their thing. If you hire the right people, you will not have to micromanage, babysit, tell them where you want to go. The right people will take you there. And if not, you have to part company with them. And it's nothing personal. You have to find the right people on the bus. And I know you want to be a good guy, you want to do the right thing. Well, the right thing is getting those people into the company where they can be successful the way they work if it doesn't fit in your own organization. But you have to get past yourself to be able to extend the trust to these people, to be realistic about the work performance that they're doing. And I find that all the challenges that I run into are getting myself out of the way to let things happen instead of it being a decision plus Mitch. You know what I mean?
I see, yeah. Clouding it or putting your layer of sort of veneer on top of this whole situation or whatever.
Yeah. So probably the biggest thing I could say would be just humility, get out of your own way. And I think even defining what that means, because I know it's helpful in your organization, because I know people are dying for you to do that,
right?
Is to define what that means for you. What does it mean to get out of your own way in your business? Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you, your people will be happier, you will be happier, and your company will grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I like that. It was kind of gave me like chills there for a second, because it's such powerful advice or really powerful knowledge that you can only learn after your years of experience. You know what I mean? I mean, to me, that's what's so fun about being able to talk to you in this type of environment. And I'm so glad I got you to sit down here
I'm
for
glad
this
to be
time.
Here. How long did it take us to do this?
I know. It's been like almost 2 years probably.
Good piece of advice. Sit down with Jim much earlier.
Okay. But anyways, look, if people are interested in finding out more about Audimute or getting in touch with you just to wrap or whatever.
The website, Mitch at Audimute.com. Mitch at Audimute.com. You can send me an email.
Okay.
You can call my cell. 216-695-4600. And how's that for balls on a podcast?
All right. Then, well, there it is, man. You might get your phone blowing up right now. Who knows?
Yeah, if you've got a sound problem, you call us. And be patient because we'll that's my cell. We're not here. There's nothing to hide from.
Very cool. Well, Mitch, I really appreciate it. And
pleasure.
until next time.
Thank you so much for having us.
Cool, man.
Good to see you.
Thank you, dude. Thank you for listening to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more, join our mailing list at JimJim'sReinventionRevolution.com. See you next time, and remember, the revolution has just begun. So dig in, embrace the process of reinvention, and start realizing the success you've always dreamed of. Hey revolutionaries, if you enjoyed today's episode and today's guest, let them know by commenting on their Facebook page, finding their Twitter handle or Instagram feed, and letting them know you heard them on Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, and tell them what you got out of the episode, what you really liked, or how they inspired you. I know they would get a kick out of it and will help others find the same value that you found.